Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Up for Q&A. So with that, Joel, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate being here in Muscatine.
So I always like to start with my first kind of simple little question. In the U.S., all of us are, when we're kids, we have a lemonade stand or something like it. I know you grew up on a farm.
I did.
So when you were a kid, what was your lemonade stand?
Baling hay for the neighbors. My brother was 2 years younger than I, and my dad farmed us out baling hay during the summer months. And for those of you who are used to farm life, you know that cows and horses, when they eat hay through the fall and the winter, there's still work for us because guess what? They eat that hay and then they poop it out. So during the summer months, we'd bale hay. We would bale over 20,000 bales of hay a summer, my brother and I. And then during the fall, winter, and early spring months, we'd be shoveling that manure out of either a cow barn or a horse barn. And that was our lemonade stand.
So what's the greatest lesson you take away from that experience? How old were you when you started doing that?
8 years old.
8.
My brother was 6.
Oh, man.
So, but we could throw bale hay, and we certainly could take a pitchfork and shovel that manure. So a couple lessons actually I learned from that was, first of all, that's not what I wanted to do for a living. So that was good. My dad taught us that no matter what job we were doing, there was always something that we could learn about that job that would carry us through life. The other thing that I think both of us learned rather quickly was that no matter how much money we were making, we had to take a piece of that and set it aside to be able to get us to the next step so that we didn't have to keep doing that kind of work, that back-breaking work for the rest of our lives. So I think those were two good lessons, and I tried to teach my kids that in raising them as well.
Yeah, cool. All right, so then fast forward, grow up, leave the farm, go to college, you find yourself a math teacher, I understand, right?
Yep.
And then financial advisor and insurance agent, banker, consultant for local regional energy company. Connect the dots for us.
Well,
from a business point of view.
I am on my 5th career.
Okay.
So I studied mathematics and business and computer programming in college, and I thought I was going to be a computer programmer. My dad said, you know, son, you need to go practice how to do a job interview. And so I did. And so my very first interview was with a bank to be a loan officer for them. And a junior loan officer, a trainee. And they offered me the job. And my dad said, you know, you got a job offer here. What are you doing looking for anything else? And so I thought, well, okay. And so I accepted the job. About 6 months later, the U.S. Department of Navy contacted me and offered me a programming job in downtown Cleveland. And I grew up on a farm, as we already said earlier, and I thought living in downtown Cleveland by myself, having really never left the area, so I stayed being a banker. I did that until my wife, who was a school teacher, said, you know, if we're going to have kids, it might be nice to be 2 teachers in the family, and we'd have summers off to raise the kids. So I switched from banking to being a math teacher. Did that for 8 years, and then my wife lost her teaching job. She was a band teacher, and during that time period, taxes were kind of tight, and schools were having to make some tough decisions, and so they were cutting the music department as an easy way to save on their budgets. We went 2 years living off of our savings and just me teaching, and at the end of that, I said I got to grow up and make more money. So I was very lucky because part of what I had been doing on a volunteer basis, I had made some connections in the community, and I got hired by Mid-American Energy to come in and consult with them I was consulting their customer service management team. And what I was consulting with them about was how they could talk to their IT department, how they could talk to their sales department, and how they could transition between those three major departments and offer products and services that were not just necessarily energy related. At that time, Iowa was thinking about becoming a deregulated utility state. And so I did that for 5 years. Was very happy doing that, probably would have still been doing that, but Warren Buffett came along and bought the company. And when Warren Buffett buys a company, he quickly takes a look at their workforce and looks to see where they can cut at to try to help pay for his purchases. So they ended up cutting 450 middle-level managers, and I got to be one of those lovely people that were downsized, which is just really a polite way of saying fired, but I was downsized. And I found myself trying to figure out then what I was going to do. I could go back to teaching, but I'd been out of teaching for a while, and so it would have been a substantial pay cut. So I had 3 children, getting a few years away from college, trying to decide what to do, and I had some 401k money, and I was talking to some advisors about it, and I quickly realized that their knowledge level and what they were recommending was much less than what I already knew. And so I thought to myself, I could do this. If they can do this, I certainly can. So I became an insurance agency owner that sold, I was an Allstate insurance owner that we sold homeowners insurance, auto insurance, but we also talked to people about what to do when they have investment opportunities from job downsizing and things like that. So I hired people to sell home and auto insurance, and then I talked to them about what to do with their money. Ended up growing that to, so I started off with no employees, no clients, and the 8 years that I ran that, I ended up hiring 7 additional people, paid for my 3 children to go to Augustana College, paid for 2 of them to go to graduate school. So I was pretty successful doing what I did, and but somebody came along and wanted to buy my agency. And so when I told them the price, because at that time I really wasn't interested in selling, they took it. And I was like, well, this is stupid because it's way overpriced. But that's what they did. They decided that that's what they wanted to do. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not going to stop you. It's a free country. You can be stupid all you want. So he paid me, and I was like, here I was going to be out of work again. And I thought I was way too young to retire. Well, one of my clients was the president of Augustana College, and he said, hey, I know the president of Blackhawk College, and their small business development director is going to retire after 30 years. I think you could do that based upon your background and how you've treated me as a client, and that skill set that I've seen you show me, I think would dovetail nicely. So I've been doing this now since 2009. Up until the end of 2015, I was in Illinois, and then my predecessor here at Eastern Iowa Community College retired at the end of last year, and I applied, and I've been over here now since January. So what I tell people is, long story, sorry about that, is that every career that I had, I use to do this job. I teach people how to be small business owners, or how to maximize their profitability, or how to transition or do things. So I use my teaching skill set. A lot of my clients, a lot of my small business owners need money. So I'm very successful at helping them get business loans. As an SBDC director, we are asked to do $3 million of loan assistance with clients every year. And typically my average is about $8.5 million. So, and I owe that to the fact that I know what bankers need to see, how they want to see it, and how the small business owners can best position themselves to get a good answer. So I use that. And what I did with Mid-American Energy is my consulting basis is we talked about launching new products, new services, how to make money from that. And that's exactly what small business owners need every day in their thing.
So if you have one dot that connects all of these careers also to your work with the SBDC now. One nugget that you've taken away that you put in play every day with what you do now and what you've done in the past, what would that be?
Well, it's a combination nugget. People describe me as passionate, and I have displayed that in every job that I've done. That even if it's shoveling manure in a barn, I was passionate. I was a hard worker. But secondly, I combine that with how can I be the best at what that is? How can I do what it takes to be successful? And so every year when we get to the end of our year, I take some time out and I look back about what has happened, what I liked that happened, what I did not like that was happened, and I try new things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but incrementally I try to get better each and every year, and I'm not afraid to talk or listen to hear what other people are doing and frankly steal their great ideas. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about this is that I meet with over 250 small business owners a year, and I get to hear everything that's going on that's successful with them and everything that's not working right. And I try to pass that on to other business owners so that they can get farther, faster, better. And to me, it's a way to give back to the community and to keep renewing the passion within me about helping others.
Cool. All right. So when we worked with the Indonesian educators that were here this summer, you said to them, what you do is your job is to teach people how to make money and not lose it. So through the SBDC, how do you do that? How do you teach people how to make money and not lose it?
Well, in the business world, there's only two ways to make more money. You either sell more stuff to more people, or you lower your costs and lower your expenses. And if you're really good, you do a little bit of both. I'll just give you a trivial, trite home example in my own life. I was spending $125 a month to DirecTV. Now you think about that, folks. $125 a month times 12 months, that's $1,400 plus another $60. That's almost $1,500 a year that I was spending. Now, if I walked up to you and handed you $1,500, how powerful is that? Could that change some things in your life? Absolutely. And yet, I was handing it away, I was giving it away to DirecTV, and at the end of the year, you know what I had for it? Nothing. So at that time, I decided, you know what? I could still get free TV. I can go out, spend $35. I can get an HD TV antenna, and I could go either buy an Amazon Fire Stick or something else. And for $35, I can get 50. I can get 50 channels on cable, and I'm now $90 ahead. That's $1,080. $1,080 every year. Now you think about this. I've got two grandchildren that are 2 years old. $1,000 a year. If I kept that money for the next 16 years until they're ready to go to school, I can hand them $8,000 each to go to college with. That is the power to change their lives in a way of just doing some cost savings, some analyzing of what I need versus what I want. You can apply those same kind of techniques with your small business. So as an example with that is that I have two rules in business. One of my rules is, as long as it's not illegal or unethical or immoral, then negotiate. So if you're trying to sell something, you usually got to buy something to be able to sell it. There's a lot of different places to get it from. I will go into a Target and try to negotiate the sale price on an item from Target because I believe that you should always try to negotiate if you can. Now, sometimes I'm not going to waste my time with it, but I like doing that. It's the same thing for you as a small business owner. Negotiate with your supplier. Try to figure out, is this my best source? I have clients all the time that when you compare their cost of goods sold with their competitors, they're 5 or 6% worse than what their competitors are. Well, if you don't think that that's a lot of money, let me put it to you a different way. If you sell $1,000 worth of stuff a week, 5% difference is $50. $50 times 50 weeks is $2,500. $2,500 here, $2,500 here. You do it 4 different times, that's 10 grand. That's a lot of money. So 5%, just watching the little stuff can make the difference. So when I say not lose money, we get so busy or thinking about trying to make money that we forget or not pay attention to losing it internally on spending it on silly stuff.
Cool, good. Okay, so let's talk specifically about some of the SBDC services. Specifically, what kinds of things does SBDC offer? How do people connect with you and use those services?
Well, that's a good question. So first of all, it's a free service. Secondly, it's a confidential service. And the reason why it's free and the reason why it's confidential is that my job position is paid for with a combination of federal, state, and local tax dollars. So what I tell people is, I hate paying taxes, but guess what? I think I'm worth your tax money. So use me, call me. I'm not going to talk about your situation to anybody other than you or whoever you give me permission to, because sometimes I'll talk to their accountant or sometimes I'll talk to their banker, but only once I have their permission. But secondly, because I do see so many other business owners, I can bring information that you may never even thought of. So what I try to do with my clients is have one-on-one confidential meetings with them and try to bring to them solutions or options for them to consider. What I recognize is it's not my business, it's yours. It's not my life, it's yours. My job is to be that navigator so that when we see that iceberg in the water, I say to you, well, we could hit it. We could go left, we could go right, we could go over it, we could go under it, we could reverse and go in a different direction. What would you like to do? And by the way, for every one of those options, here's what you're going to gain and here's what you're going to give up out of it. So what would you like to do? And that's what we try to do with whether or not you're trying to buy or sell a business, which is one of the services we help offer. We do business evaluations. We'll help you negotiate with either a buyer or seller. Frankly, I'm doing that right now up near Macokota. I've got somebody trying to buy a garage repair shop. I'm helping both the buyer and the seller understand the true value of the business, and I'm helping them come to an agreement so that they can successfully make that transaction happen. If they get that done, which I'm really happy to say, as of on Sunday, an agreement was made, I'm now helping the buyer work with the lender to get the loan made. So it doesn't just stop there, because what happens is once that buyer has the business, it's sort of like people our age, we go see a doctor once or twice a year, right? It's the same kind of thing. You can call me in anytime you want. I'll come in, take a look at what your books look like, take a look at your operations, just take a walk around, and just try to give you some input on what I see and what I don't do, what I don't see. And again, it's up for the business owner to consider. So buying and selling, maximizing your profits. Again, sometimes you're leaving money on the table on the cost side. Sometimes you're leaving money available on the revenue side. Sometimes you might have issues with HR. Sometimes you might have issues with the state, with either sales tax or the IRS or whatever. And I'll talk to you about that. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a banker anymore. I'm not an insurance agent anymore. But I have stayed in the Holiday Inn Express. I love that commercial. And so I know enough about some of all of those stuff that I'm able to talk to you about that and then tell you, but you know what? We also need to talk to some of those professionals and have them stamp what I've said to them. So, but I'm a lot cheaper to talk to originally than they are. So at least we have the initial conversation, and hopefully what that means is that when they do talk to somebody who's charging them by the hour, that it's a shorter conversation. So those are some services that we offer. Again, they're all free.
Okay.
And
So I'm a guy, I call you up and I come to your office and I say, I'm a real talented mechanic. I'm going to start my own business. What do I do? That's all I have to ask you. What do you do then?
that's all you got to ask. And by the way, what you said was you'll come to my office. That's not necessarily a requirement. I also travel.
Okay.
I come down here a couple times a month. I go to Clinton. I go to Macokota. I go to DeWitt. I go West Liberty, Wilton. I'll come to you. What I say to the colleges is that I'll stay in Scott County half the days. The other half, I'm out, covering the territory. So if you can't make it to Davenport, that's okay, because I'll be back in this area. So if that's what you said to me, here's what I'm going to say to you. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me, first of all, what's your household income look like? Do you have a budget? How much money do you need to be contributing to your household budget? Because those answers will impact how much money your business needs to make. I'll ask you whether or not your significant other, if you have one, do they support it? Do they not support it? Are they a worrier or are they kind of calm, cool, and collected? Are you a worrier? Because what I try to do is get to know you just a little bit more so that I can give you advice that fits you personally rather than just generic business advice that you can read out of a textbook. So once I get to know them just a little bit, then we just start talking about what are the steps necessary to start a business in Iowa, which basically I've got a handout so that they don't have to remember everything. I've got a handout that's got all the things that are necessary to start a business in Iowa. And then we start talking about a couple of things. And the couple of things is this. What I find is, so you said a car repair person,
Yeah.
right? So then I'll ask them, so have you ever kept any books? And they'll say, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, who writes the checks in your household? Who balances, who knows how much money you have or not? Sometimes it's them, sometimes it's not. Well, have you ever had to buy advertising? Have you ever had to hire employees? Do you intend to hire employees? Do you intend to do this at your house? Do you intend to do this in a place you're going to lease or buy or whatever? And we start dissecting all of those questions that are necessary to put together a plan. Because what I found, and even this happened in my own personal life, is that if it's okay, I love diving in, but you know what? I do kind of want to know that when I dive into that water, whether or not it's a 3.5 inch deep well of water or whether I got 12 feet. Because if it's only 3.5 inches deep when I dive in, I'm going to break my neck, right? So there's some things I want to test before I just dive in. So, but be that as it may, I try to make it as painless and as quick as possible. I've got people that will come to me and they'll go, I want to start next month. And we can get that done for you. I've got people that, you know what? 2 years from now, I want to start. Okay, great. Because what I find is that everybody who walks in has a different goal and has a different set of timelines and has a different set of needs. My job is to figure out how to help them accomplish their goals, not what I need to have accomplished.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about Muscatine and kind of our startup community a little bit. And maybe it's related to all of eastern Iowa where we practice, but specifically for Muscatine, what do you see are the key ingredients to building a healthy startup ecosystem of businesses that are starting and growing and some closing and all of that stuff?
Well, you're always going to have businesses open and you're going to always have businesses closed. I mean, it's painful for me when I see businesses close, but that's just part of life. It's just like, if you think about it with people, right? You got people that get born, and you got people that die, and things keep moving along. What I love about Muscatine is that Muscatine, you walk down this street, East 2nd Street, and you got business, 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 business. And it was fun for me to see how many businesses were actually open still on my way to this meeting. That was really kind of neat. You got the waterfront. You've got then 38th. You got 38 that goes out by the college. Then you got the Beltway. You got large businesses. We have in Muscatine here, we've got businesses that are Fortune 100 companies. That just doesn't happen in towns of less than 30,000 very often. So we got an opportunity to be able to have for you to reach out, have a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of opportunity to do just about anything you want. I was speaking to a gentleman in the audience tonight. I asked him how he got into this business. Well, it was really almost by accident, wasn't it? It's okay. Keep your ears open, keep learning things, and keep looking for opportunities. Ask questions. Which is why the fact that you're all here tonight trying to do that. I mean, Jim, you and I have been associated now not only for this 8 months, but I knew you a little bit when I was over on the Illinois side. And the fact that you've got the startup grind here, the entrepreneurship activities that you're doing with Muscatine Community College, the different programs that you've highlighted and brought people in to speak, it's fantastic. So I think if you take those things, look for them not just here, but also the Quad Cities, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, see what other people are doing. Don't be afraid to beg, borrow, and steal things that they're doing that you like and make it your own. Because guess what? If you're here and somebody else is 60 miles away, there's a lot of clients for you to capture within this 60-mile radius. So let's say you like to cook and you go someplace and you like their food. Try it here. Who knows? Let's say you are a quilter and you see some things. I got a business that just started up a few weeks ago that she's taking advantage of the fact that the Cubs are in the playoffs, and she is making Cubs purses and knapsacks, bags. I'm sorry, purses and bags and some other little kids coin purses. Thank you. Couldn't think of the word. And she's, where she's selling them at? Bars. She's going to the bars, taking her wares in, and sells out with all the guys that are there rooting for the Cubs because they're going home and then giving them to either their daughters, their significant others, their moms, whatever. She's making a ton of money already. She's only been officially at this for like 3 weeks.
We'll see if she's still in business after a couple more days.
She will be though because guess what? There's always going to be the next sports team that's hot. Right? People like to cheer for winners. So whether it's the Vikings or whether it's the Packers, right? It's definitely not going to be the Bears this year, right? So Hawkeyes, right? So people like to do that. And so she likes to sew. That's what happened. She said, well, what can I make? And she was out traveling out to the West Coast and saw somebody making something like that. And she said, I can do that. And so that's what she's doing. So that's what I'm saying to you is the fact that you're out here now, take what you love to do, what you're passionate about, because guess what? If you do that, it's a lot better than having to sit there and either file papers all day long or answer the phone for somebody or whatever you got to do when you're working for somebody else and you're told what you have to do. And if you kind of nod your head when I say that, you're probably a future business owner just waiting to emerge.
Yeah. So you just said one word that I think everyone that I've had in this chair at a Startup Grind chat has said, and that's passion about what you're doing. Clearly you are. You've said that you are, and I think you show that. So let's kind of wrap this portion up, then we'll get to some Q&A. And the last question that I always ask is, even though you are now, as a director of the Small Business Development Center, you don't technically own a business, you're still an entrepreneur. Everything that you do is entrepreneurial.
Oh, sure.
So,
right.
So what's the worst part about being an entrepreneur? And then finish with what's the best part.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things that are the worst part, right? You try to make a sale and you get told no. Frankly, that stinks. Sometimes you'll go above and beyond for a client and you'll think, wow, I've done this for him. And then you find out that they have now filed a complaint that, guess what, they did not like how you did something. And you go, wait a minute. I just met with them at 8 o'clock at night for 3 weeks in a row, trying to bust my hump so that they can meet their deadline, and they're upset because they got turned down by the bank. I get that, but I've had that happen. So things will not always go your way, is what I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you gotta learn to get a thicker skin, and you gotta fight through that. And if you can, that's what makes probably the more successful business owners. On the flip side, you also got to be willing to listen, because I've had business owners where they've come in to see me. I'll pick my very worst case, so don't get too discouraged because it's my worst case. A business owner come in and says, I'm retiring from the arsenal and I want to open up a restaurant that's a steakhouse. It's a make-your-own steakhouse. And I'm going to take most of my savings, I'm going to open up this restaurant. And I'm like, why are you doing this? He goes, because I want to give something to my grandkids. And he was going to go do it in a town that did not even have 1,000 people. And he was going to spend $120,000 to buy a building and then another $50,000 to renovate it. And then he was going to buy steaks. Well, if you do the math, if you think about this, folks, he was going to sink $150,000 into it. Most restaurants struggle to make 5% profit. So if you take $150,000 and divide it by 5%, okay, he's got to do $1.5 million worth of business before he's at the break-even point. And in a town of less than 1,000 people, that's almost impossible. And I said to him, I applaud you for your effort, but can we at least move it into a larger population center? It's like, nope, I want to go here. I'm like, okay, I think you're going to lose your shirt. And he decided that's what he was going to do. And so he ignored my advice, and sure enough, 2 years later, he'd lost not only that money, but another $100,000 of labor and everything else that he poured into it, and ended up closing up the shop. And to this day, it bothers me. That was 6 years ago. To this day, that still bothers me. But you know what? The fact of the matter is that what gives me hope is that his wife, his kids, and his grandkids saw that process happen, and they're not going to make that mistake. So chances are one of them will probably be a business owner. It's just the odds. So now that they've seen Grandpa do that, they won't make that mistake. So that gives me some hope. And so what I tell people is you got to be willing to listen. And part of that listening is sometimes you take the advice, but at least sometimes you don't, but at least listen to it. And by doing that, sometimes you're going to find something that just clicks within you and can make you a whole lot of money. And so that's what I think is really cool, is that in our country, there's an almost unlimited opportunity for you to take control of your life and get to wherever you want to get to. I think that is probably the best thing about this whole gig. Does it happen all the time? Nope. But guess what? It does happen. So, cool.
All right, let's open it up for questions for Joel.
Yes, sir.
Aside from your current position, is there any other career that you would wish to do or had thought about doing before this career? Or
So I'm on job 5, right?
yep.
I've got somewhere between 5 to 8 more years of doing this, I think. And I'm thinking about going to law school when I get done. So yeah, I'm already plotting away. So.
Why's that?
Why?
Yeah.
Because like I say, this job has been kind of a culmination of everything I've done in the past. I think an attorney actually would be then the culmination of even this job with everything I've done in the past.
Would you see yourself making your own practice of what you're doing now, or do you
Yes, yeah, exactly, yes. Right. Yes, ma'am.
When a person comes to you, what should they think about first? Is there like some questions they should ask themselves or prepare before they come and talk to you?
Sure. Great question. So if you called me up and said, hey, I want to meet with you, what I'd say is this. Here's what we're going to discuss in our first meeting, and the first meeting is going to last somewhere between an hour to hour and a half. Here's what I would like to discuss. First of all, I want to hear about why you want to do it. I want to hear a little bit about what's going on in your personal life. Who else do you need to support? And I want to hear about your personal budget. Because when we start formulating your business plans, we need to know, well, let me rephrase it. You should know how much money you have to make from the job. One of the things that made me be successful is every day when I went to work for my business, I knew that for me to be able to support my family budget, I had to sell $412 worth of stuff every day. $412. So when I got home at night, my wife didn't greet me at the door going, hi, honey, did you have a nice day? Which she does now. But it was, what was your number? 8 years. 8 years of that. What happens is by doing that, once you know what that number is, she got to sleep all she wanted to. And that's okay for me because if she's sleeping, it makes it easier on me, right? Then I get to worry about other things, right? I don't have to worry about whether or not that relationship's going to go south on me. I can concentrate on my business because that's important. People have to understand that your personal life gets wrapped up in your business life. And if one is going south, the other one probably is going south too. So you got to know your number. So that's how we start the conversation. I had a young gal who wanted to open up a restaurant. I had a 14-year-old daughter. She was a divorced mom, so she was the sole source of income. And I ended up showing her that if she started that now, what she ran the risk of is that most restaurants do not make it to the 3rd year, and that she would have lost her house by the time her daughter, just as her daughter's graduating from college or high school, and now it might be tough for her to go to college. So I ended up showing her that and talking through that process. Plus, on top of that, she had never done anything in a restaurant before other than the fact that she cooked at home and threw parties, right? So, and her job was a desk job. I said, well, Go home this weekend and stand up all day. See how you do. She came back the next week. She's crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She says, I did it Saturday just great. She said, but when I tried to do it Sunday, I was so hurting so bad I couldn't do it. I said, well, if you're working in a restaurant, you're going to be on your feet all day long. So she learned that painful little lesson. But what we end up doing is saying, hey, how about if you put this on hold for 3 years, get your daughter graduated from high school, and then think about it. And during that interim, let's have you go work in a restaurant. I'll connect you up with some restaurant people. Well, tell them what you're trying to do, and they'll give you learning opportunities in the kitchen, as a waitress, managing the cash register, ordering the food. Well, guess what? 4 years later, she has her own restaurant. You don't have to have everything today. I know that's hard for some of us to think of because with our cell phones and everything, it's like a now kind of thing. But you don't have to have it today.
That's such a valid point, the instant gratification.
But that's how we start off. And that's what I want you to do is be prepared to talk about what you need to make out of this business. What else? Yes, sir.
The reason I came is because of your give first, make friends, and help others. That's how I've always done my business. And for most of my business life, I've had very few salespeople in my business. I always talk about getting run over by the bus. You need to stand out in the street and get run over by the bus. But what's deceptive about what you're doing there, and what I want to ask you about, it relates to the numbers when you were talking about the $412 every day.
Yep.
Given that you've got to give first, you have to make friends and connections, and then you have to help others, what's your time frame?
And
Because
that,
you've only got 3 years usually.
yes, that's exactly right. So what happens is, and that's part of the planning process that I sit down with that owner to do. So let's say I was counseling me when I first started. I would say, well, what's your safety net? What do you have for a safety net? How deep is that? And then, and because what I'll say is, you know what? When you open your doors on day one, you're not going to sell for $112. You'll be lucky to sell anything. So let's pretend it's zero, and then zero, and then zero, and zero, and zero, and zero, and zero. So what we do is we build into that plan that incremental process. So I just got done helping a client get a loan for a nail salon. And she's working currently in a nail salon. And I asked her, well, how many manicures, pedicures, manicure deluxes? We went through all the different items that she sells, which, by the way, I've now learned more about manicures, pedicures than I ever knew before. Waxes, don't even want to go there. So anyway, we talked about all those services, and I said, well, what are you now normally doing? And what I said to her is, so let's plan that it's going to take you 18 months to get to 75% of that. Well, she didn't want to. She's like, no, I can get it there quicker. Well, guess what? If you can, you'll be pleasantly surprised. But let's figure you can't. And then what's it going to look like each month? And I made her go through that process. Well, how many do you think you're going to do this month? And then next month, and then whatever. And then we built that into the loan request. Because guess what? Much like dealing with children or parents, depending on which age range you're at, what you'll find often is if you're not surprising them, it's a lot easier to get the things you're asking for. But if you're surprising them, chances are things are not going to go well for you. So if you're upfront with the lender and you say, here's where I'm at, and here's where I think I'm going to be, and I'm being conservative in my revenue approach, and I'm going to be aggressive on how much my expenses are, and here's what my safety net is, and here's what a possible backup safety net is, then depending on the kind of business that you're doing, we oftentimes can get a lender to buy into that vision. And so the lender is actually lending on you getting through that startup curve. So that's probably why I'm so successful at getting that kind of loan dollar volume, is because my lenders know that I'm going to hammer the heck out of my clients, pushing down their revenue wishes and dreams, raising those expenses, and trying to be realistic about it. And now when they see the number, they go, well, yeah, we think they can do that too. I mean, that's what I hear all the time. They're like, this is all they need to do to make this thing work? Yep. Okay, we'll buy into that. So that's my secret sauce right there. I just now violated my trademark patent. So
We're gonna have it bottled in Alex's video.
there you go.
Any other questions?
Come on, nobody? Come on, ask me something weird, anything weird. Yes, sir.
What's your middle name?
Edward.
What's yours?
Michael.
Good. Yes, ma'am.
What's the strangest thing that somebody has asked for a startup?
Does a mortuary count? That's a dead business, isn't it? I get a lot of inventors that have. I'll get probably half a dozen inventors a year, and they're inventing. I've had duck calls. I've had somebody invented an improvement to a ladder, and actually that one is. He'll be a millionaire in about 2 more years. So.
With the cannabis or dispensaries, CBD oils.
Thank you for asking that. So, we are not, because we're financed with federal tax dollars. We cannot help with marijuana or cannabis or any of those kinds of things. Nor can we do anything with legalized prostitution in those states that it's legal. We can't do it because it's federal tax dollars and it's not legal everywhere. We can't do. We really can't help with gambling either, because gambling is not legal everywhere. So I've been
It's not legal.
Industrial hemp is federally legal.
Industrial what?
Industrial hemp is federally legal.
But we're just precluded to help with that.
Is that because you're partially federally funded?
Right. It's because we're partially federally funded. So like off site, or I could talk to you about that in general, but then it's just.
Well, the 2014 federal Agricultural Act made industrial hemp.
I get that, but not everything's caught up to everything else. That's the problem. My guess is that as that becomes if that becomes federally legalized for everything, that we'll be able to help. Yeah.
So if I was to talk to you, set up an appointment with you, or how
Yes.
in advance are you out?
Well,
Will it take a while for that?
it does not. Well, okay, it depends. I have busier times of the year than others. So, the very busiest time is springtime for me. And it's because people are trying to get their taxes done, and so businesses are being sold and that kind of thing. So in that case, I'm probably 2 weeks out. Times like now, I just booked somebody. I booked somebody for 2 appointments on Thursday. So it's kind of hit or miss. And then it also depends on whether or not I'm coming to you or you're coming to me. So as an example, the 2 people I booked on Thursday, I was already going to Clinton. Both of those people were in Clinton. If it had been somebody from Muscatine calling, I would have had the appointments, but I would have been in Clinton that day. So.
How long do they usually last? An hour?
What I tell people is, I like to talk. I like to hear you talk. So let's plan for an hour and a half. But if we cut it short to an hour, we cut it short to an hour. On the other hand, I've got people that'll book me for a 2.5 hour appointment. It's really it's their choice. It's their taxpayer dollars and I'm willing to listen. So. What's that? Am I very busy? I worked 12 hours yesterday, and I've worked 12 hours today. I'll work 11 hours tomorrow, 12 hours on Thursday. I think I'm busy. For a government employee, I'm busy. I get some of my peers upset with me because I treat this like I'm a small business owner still. I feel like you are my clients. If you can't see me because of whatever, okay, I'll try to accommodate you. So I've got the couple, one of the reasons why it's so many hours this week is because of this couple that's trying to buy the auto repair place. Both of them work. One of them has an in-home daycare business. And so she's not available until 6 o'clock. She's got kids all day long. And he's a garage repair person already. So he doesn't get home till 5:30. They happen to live north of Maquoketa. So I'm meeting with them at 6 o'clock at night. We meet for an hour, hour and a half. And then it takes me an hour and a half from there to get to home. So it's okay. It's all part of the job. What
Anybody
else?
else? Okay.
All right.
I'm sure we'll see Joel again.
Oh, how to get a hold of me.
Yes.
Somebody asked me. So I got an easy email. So SBDC, Small Business Development Center, right? SBDC at, I work for Eastern Iowa Community College, so it's at eicc.edu. I've also got links all over the place. I also have Twitter, so that's QC Small Business. I also have a Facebook page. I have a LinkedIn presence. If you ask me to connect with you, I'll connect with you. I'm connected with like 600 or 700 people now, so a few more doesn't matter. So I try to push out information all the time, try to give you interesting tidbits. So if you're interested, follow me on Twitter. Look, I'm old, so I'm new to Twitter, meaning like only about 14 months into Twitter, but I'll put out something a couple times a week, so at least I'll get you some information. So, and hopefully it's all good. So.
Okay. All right. So
Alrighty.
Joel, this is a bit of a little tradition that we have. So my favorite Steve Jobs quote is, "I just want to put a ding in the universe." So this is to say thank you for sharing your ding.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, and thank you very much, folks, for giving me your time today.
You got?